Today we got Coach Wojciech. He is currently a free agent coach in Poland who has spent numerous years coaching football in Europe, and most recently last year spent some time in the U.S. with Towson, kind of as an assistant D-line coach in GA. Coach, how you doing?
Thank you, Coach, for having me. I'm doing better than I deserve. I'm doing fantastic. Just spending time with the family,
Good.
getting, yes, sir. I'm doing fine.
Now, I want to kind of let you get into that a little bit. Kind of explain your coaching background for people who don't know who you are, and kind of learn kind of the path you've been on.
Yeah, so I was actually one of the guys who started American football in Poland back in mid 2000s. And we started playing, without equipment or only mouth guards, so it looks like letterheads. And then gradually we started, the league. So at that time, I was thankfully we had internet and I knew English pretty well. So I said, okay, I want to learn about a game, and my role expanded with the team because I was still playing. And back when I finished my playing days, when I retired at 28 in 2012, I said, hey, I'd like to be a part of it. And one of my buddies, he hit me up and said, hey, we're having a startup team, Aikman Football. Would you be interested in helping us out? And said, hey, yeah, let's roll with that. And that was the start. And I've been fortunate enough to do something in Europe and also visit the US, work with USA Football. Last year with Towson, constant education, as you said. As I told you earlier, like thanks to your channel, a lot of coaching materials on YouTube, on Twitter, and you just gotta constantly educate yourself. So just growing there and constant learning.
Well, that's fantastic, Coach. I mean, like, and we've talked a little bit back and forth messaging over the past couple weeks. Um, and I kind of want to talk about that is what kind of like struggles do you guys constantly deal with? Because I mean, obviously trying to find players, trying to find qualified coaching staffs and training coaches. Like, what are the main issues you guys kind of deal with over there?
Well, I would say it's a different. I mean, Europe is not like single market. Like in different countries, you have different cultures. For example, in our neighbor in Germany, you have like 40, 41 years of football tradition. In Poland, we're going to be playing hopefully next week the 15 Polish Bowl next week. So it's a lot, it's a different resources pool. You have different players and coaches. But as you said, recruiting for players is a big thing because of course of obvious parents' health concerns. Oh my God, my Tomek or Peter's going to go to practice, going to break a leg or whatever. And for coaches, yeah, you want to take your, like, for example, your retired players, or you want to invest in Americans who are either in Europe or there are some recruiting platforms. Equipment, it's not like, it's unlike soccer where all you need is like a ball and you can have a pickup game. If you want to start an American football team, you need helmets, shoulder pads. So you try to I was back in the day. I had a company, and I was looking through eBay's and buying like, okay, 3 helmets here, 4 shoulder pads, some surplus at the universities, and just get shipped over. But this is the other thing. Then American football doesn't have a status of Olympic sport, so when you're competing, because public funding is big for the clubs here, so you got to be creative with fundraising and those more established sports, soccer, basketball, and depending on the city, they may be different sports. They compete for public funding. So you got to be, think a little bit outside of the box. What we as American football have that other sports don't have. But for example, young people, you have those cool designs of helmets and shoulder pads. This looks like Transformers or Iron Man, so I want to be part of it. So they love it. Madden was big for us, or like movies. Like Remember the Titans, or Big Mike. Kids see that, hey, I want to be part of that. Last Chance U is massive. People say, okay, this is something that I want to be a part of because you have free advertisements. So it also helps that the sport is ingrained in American culture, that it's part, and those are a couple of things that we definitely have to deal with, on a daily basis here.
Okay, continuing off that, how has the sport grown in Europe and in Poland specifically over the past 20 years? Like, obviously, like in my lifetime in America, it's grown tremendously. But as someone who's never been to Europe, how have you seen the growth over the past 20 years? And kind of how's that eased your recruiting of players and coaches?
Well, so Poland was relatively late to the party because we actually started growing it when the NFL Europe ceased its operation, because it was 2007, if I remember. But if you look at those golden years of them, when they had the World League and the NFL Europe, that definitely helped. For us, it was more like, okay, it was built from the ground up. So there were a couple of enthusiasts in one city who said, hey, we're starting a team, and for example, in Warsaw and then Poznan and Gdynia, the Tri-City up north, and the Wrocław and the lower cities in the south joined, and we started our own first league. It was a little different than baseball, where like MLB sent a lot of resources, a lot of money, and said, hey, Stan Musial was from Poland, hey, we're going to build a league here. For us, it was more of a like organic growth, and you could find some people who wanted to do that, and then some sponsors or like parents who had kids who played the sport, and they kind of started doing that. But as you say, the fact that NFL started their international expansion, like having games in London, or that it was the internet, it was a huge factor for us, because you could see some games or some coaching materials. It was more accessible. That definitely helped us. And then you have a lot of Americans who graduate from college, and who there is so many of them go pro, and then you can think about it, the prospect of, okay, you can go to Europe, you can travel, because basically in a normal situation, there's like, you can reach most places with those cheap airlines that you can buy a ticket for like 10 or 15 euros in advance. You can go to Rome or Paris, you can play ball, you can be a superstar, and you can have the sense of Euro life. That's something that's a lot of guys find interesting, and some of them stay longer than 1 year. Some of them move here and start their own businesses, and so that is something that helped us in Poland. And I think Poland has this special relationship with the US, and especially in recent years. And we actually, after the communist bloc fell, we actually adopted a lot of I wouldn't say American way of life, but all the McDonald's, all the American companies entered here, Starbucks, Apples, and football was part of that, and that definitely helped us grow the sport.
Awesome, Coach. Now, kind of going back to your Townsend experiences, what did you take away from Townsend? What did you bring back with you to Europe? Like, what were your main learning points from that experience?
Well, yeah. So first and foremost, I'd like to give a shout out to Coach Rob Ambrose and Coach Eric Daniels, who actually was the link that allowed me to get there. And you may watch all the series with Days of Scarlet and Gray, or the training camps of Alabama football, Alabama Crimson Tide. But unless you're, when you're part of this staff, and you actually get the feeling of the, QC life, when you're, help see the process, you're part of it. That's something it's hard to, unless you live that, it's hard to, to see it. And definitely all the preparation, so originally I was supposed to be there for about 2 to 3 weeks as a shadow coach, and after a week, Coach Ambrose gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. He asked me if I'd be interested in staying with the team for the rest of the season, so I agreed to that. And then Coach Kosmakos, D-line coach, I was assistant. I was given the responsibility of preparing some of the reports for the scouting report, run, field position runs, short yardage goal line, and then draw the scout cards. So there's different level of attention to detail, especially when you have those, whatever video system you work with, but you have good quality film. So that for example, that receiver is on the hash mark, he's on the hash mark. If he's 3 yards, inside the numbers, he should be there, right? Or if a coach wants you to draw power and the blocking scheme, you don't draw the generic power, but how this team, definitely blocks it. And for us, the first week was Citadel, so it was, mainly runs. I'm like, shit, I'm not going to be able to sleep, with the amount of work. Hey, it got better. It's good, when you have a good team, because it's a complete, team effort, and you understand that you're in the same boat. The other thing, you can read all about how we're family, and, how you take care about the players, and that they're human first, and the holistic approach. That's something that, you definitely see it on a daily basis. The amount of time that coaches spend with the players, not only on X and O, but also on the grades and helping them with other life situations, and the amount of care that they give about the players. That's something that you can definitely take and apply in Europe. It's of course for us it's harder because when you have the senior team, which seniors are technically about 19-year-old to 30 or 40-year-old. So you can be in your early 20s and be a university student. You have different time and different how should I say daily responsibilities versus a guy who's in his 30s, has a wife and a job. But those guys still, they come to practice, so it's kind of it's you can how should I say you can there's a lot of things that translate to Europe, but you have to adapt in some situations, right? For example, the financial resources aren't there as well, right? It's a different level. You may see, okay, it's a how should I say, it's amateur sport, but the amount of support staff, and this is and the equipment, trainers, that's something unmatched. That's something that gets you. But again, you want to be efficient. You want to learn that you will try to take as much of the process, grading players, creating scouting reports, and maybe the tools are a little different, but something that you can definitely take from you. And what was encouraging for me is that although the playbook is definitely much thicker back in Towson or CA or Division One, those games still come down to tackling, to those blocking, making fundamental plays. So that emphasis on being fundamentally sound and harping that and making sure that we don't beat ourselves and that we actually have those fundamentals. That's something that definitely translates to the game overseas.
Awesome, Coach. Now, kind of going back to Poland football, what do you predict the growth and the continued success of football in that country to be over the next 15, 20 years, assuming we get back to some normalcy here soon, knock on wood, once we get through this virus?
You would like me to talk? You would like me to talk about mainly Poland or Europe?
You can do Europe. You can just use Europe in general if you want.
Well, the way I look at it, definitely huge factors is that now the global hunt for success in the first in the college level, it's actually expanded. You could see several teams hosted either camps or came here, and now you have all those coaches who say, okay, there's a guy who can bowl, for example, in Sweden or in Germany. I would like to have a look at his tape, or if he's this athletic monster who has this great coordination and size, say, let's give him a shot. And I think that's gonna help us. There, even last week there was another huge news that there were going to be a new professional league in Europe, the European League of Football. We will see how it goes, because definitely it's an interesting prospect. But as the cases of Alliance, American Football, and XFL showed us, if you're starting a professional league in this sport, it's it's going to take some time, and you need to have the right people in the management and ownership. One thing that we haven't said is I was involved for almost 2 years in football in China, so that's going to be a huge market. So I would love football to grow and football to expand and make sure that it's truly a global league, and hopefully we will see football in some form or fashion at the Olympics, because that's whether it's flag football or 7-man football tackle, it's going to be big, especially not only for US but also for the rest of the world. And the World Games is going to be hosted in Birmingham, Alabama in 2021, I believe. They're going to have flag football that's going to be under NFL and under USA football. So that's going to be big. And, you want to see a lot more kids involved, more girls playing the game. So hopefully it will grow. Hopefully, those coaches who are inviting, or are hunting for the talent will try to build those relationships with the coaches, with the club coaches here in Europe, and also build those exchanges. That will be more something that is more popular. One thing that actually helped us, and this may be how should I say it, something that is not so obvious with the 2020, is that a lot of those clinics, like for example the Alabamas or whatever, they've been hosted on Zoom. So you can have access to sit with a high profile coach in a meeting, or all the great work that you do, and you can actually, you may be on lockdown, but you can exchange those ideas, you can bounce off, you can discuss it and learn and grow as coach. Because as we said to ourselves, hey, it's gonna end someday, hopefully sooner than later. But when it finishes and when we're back on the field, we want to be better as coaches than when we were when it actually started. So I hope that the game grows, and that it's only for the better, and more guys from Europe is playing at the college level, and hopefully you have this new Luka Doncic of football in the NFL, and then that's gonna be big.
Now, I kind of want to one other thing with structure is how are your football? I know you guys typically use the term club more than instead of organization. How are your football clubs structured? Is it similar to your soccer structure, or is it more of a actual like NFL type structuring system?
Well, so but by club, it's so they are organized as like independent entities, more like non-government organizations, like association. So there is there is a board, and each player typically because you have some teams that are organized as companies, but this is a very few examples in Europe. In most places, each member gets a has a vote like every year. So there is general assembly, and they elect the board, etc. But within the club, you have a senior team that's like typically 19-year-old through as you said 30 to mid to late 30s. You also have the junior teams, and then depending on the country, they start as early as the U13 league, which is tackle, and they play I believe 7-man, smaller field, something like a rookie tackle that is endorsed by USA Football. You have U15, U17, and then you have U19, and also on some of those levels, for example, in Europe, you have those European championships, which is big because when because of our history, when France is playing Germany, or Sweden is playing Denmark, or Poland played Germany. This is it's something that motivates those guys and gives them the exposure on a European level, because as we said, if you can you may be the best player on a national level, but you can go out and play against those U19 teams of Austria or Germany. That means, hey, you're legit, right? And that may give you the spotlight, and some college coach may be more inclined to look at that. So creating that feeder program, that pipeline of the next generation is critical. And sometimes, though we're not directly connected to school, but I remember, like, when I was in a couple of different stops in Poland, we used to have like presentations at schools. We used to go to local like soccer clubs and the academies when they have like players, 11, 12-year-olds, and we did those, American football training that actually helped them, learning how to fall, how to tumble, the contact preparation that actually some of it they could translate to soccer, because one thing you want to combat is the early specializations, and you want to have those multi-sport athletes, right? It's something that also European Union is looking at. It's not only in the sport, or who's generating more medals at the Olympics, but in like public health area, because you have youth obesity, kids are inactive, kids play Nintendos or PlayStation, so you want to keep them active. You want to find new attractive ways of getting them out of the couch and getting them on the field. And I think if we work with local authorities, or like and present football as that avenue, that's something that they will be more inclined to support.
Now, that is the last question I will have for you is how bad is sports specialization there? Because I know we combat it a little bit here with certain sports in our country. We see a lot of burnout as a result, where kids, by the time they're between 14 and 19, are just done with sports because they've been playing since they were 5, and they've been playing the same sport like almost year round. How much of a problem is that there? And I mean, you kind of mentioned you guys are combating some of that, at least the couch aspect, but how much of a problem is sports specialization?
Well, it's actually a difficult question, because again, it varies from country to country. It varies, even in Poland, you have those commercial like soccer academies that are run by the top clubs, and yeah, these guys want to incorporate some of the other stuff, but it's and at school, of course, you go through like, okay, you start with a track and field or soccer, and then you go through basketball, handball, volleyball, so year round. But it's a little different system when in the US you can get scholarship for playing volleyball, or playing basketball, and then in Poland, when okay, if you want to you have some sort of a talent, you're going to go pro, or you're going to be in the club, academy when you're like 15, or even earlier. And then you live in a dorm, and you're actually focused on getting, training and education. So yeah, I think it's there was a growing debate, and those entities involved and all the stakeholders, they get more aware of the problem. So we try to find the common ground. But I would say there is still some, I wouldn't say hostility, but competition for talent. So for example, one club may be, okay, I'm not gonna allow you to give us like American football training because those this talented kid may go there. Or for example, in Poland we used to have a rivalry between rugby guys and American football clubs because we kind of competing for the same pool of talent. So yeah, it's a growing debate, and I think we are the way I like to say that hey, we're all part of the sport family, and our goal should be to get them active and allow them to sport sample. I think it was Malcolm Gladwell who in his latest book he pointed out Roger Federer, who until he was like 15 or 16, he played multiple sports, right? And that's kind of like some of his skills he learned on skiing or volleyball translated to his success at tennis. So I would encourage our kids to play, and even for us at our football practice, we love to add some grappling stuff, some elements from wrestling, or, add some different games, small-sided games, or some like butt sumo or whatever. Playing the tic-tac-toe with the jerseys, and kind of make it fun for them, because if they have fun, they are more inclined to come back. And it's a challenge because you want to develop their skills, especially in season. But whenever we have free time, and sometimes you want to just break the monotony of practice, so you want to add some game element and some friendly competition.
Well, awesome, Coach. Well, I thank you for coming on. If any coaches want to get a hold of Coach Wojciech and talk some football with him, his Twitter will be in the bio below on how to get a hold of him. Coach, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you educating us on some European football. And have a good rest of your day, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Coach, for having me. And stay safe out there, and see you soon, hopefully on the clinics, or don't hesitate to hit me up on Twitter, and I would love to share some insight and give you any more information.
Awesome, Coach.